Bulgaria, a place where I'm sure things happen. Well, in Kaiserreich, Bulgaria is in an interesting situation. Since they're standing amongst the winners of World War I, they gained a lot of territory, but despite that, everything ain't as pretty as it seems. The Bulgarian economy wasn't in a great place going into the Great War, so coming out of it, well, the Bulgarian people wanted their government to change, and the Bulgarian government wanted their people to shut up, so they passed the State Protection Act to keep the monarchy in power. So now, in 1936, Bulgaria stands in uncertain times. While people fight internally to steer Bulgaria to their vision of the future, the nation's neighbors prepare themselves to reclaim what they have lost. So the focus tree for Bulgaria starts off deceptively small because all the alternative paths are hidden, but for now, we are forced to start with doing Operation Nishava. What is Operation Nishava, you may ask? Well, Serbians in newly annexed lands have been causing trouble for many years now because of a few mass murders. But instead of getting over it, they continue to inspire unrest against the Bulgarians. The plan? Arrest every Serbian in the country above 100 IQ. After we get all 300 of them, there will be peace in the country. Shockingly, mass arresting minorities in the country was not received well by the general public. And now there was a call for change in the government to remove the State Protection Act and get the monarchy out of power. In order to hold on to the power, the monarchy had to resist these efforts to repeal the law, along with other factions who had their own ideas for what the government should look like. Then Black Monday hit, and although Bulgaria wasn't too badly affected by it, people were still scared and started running to the bank for their money. And as if the internal instability wasn't enough, Serbia, Romania, and Greece are starting war preparations to attack me. With Germany and Austria consumed by Black Monday, they're gonna stand by and let me be attacked. The poor peasants in the countryside now had no one to sell to with the economic depression, and faced with their livelihoods being destroyed, thousands joined together to strike against the government for subsidies. Political agents quickly got involved to hijack the strikes and make them against the State Protection Act. So I had to crack down hard on it. With all the economic hardship and an imminent war, the Bulgarian government was in desperate need of money, so they tried to get capital in any way they could. They soon received money from a sponsor they couldn't refuse: Displate. Displate is a metal poster company featuring over 2 million works of art from artists or from iconic brands you know like Star Wars, Warhammer, Marvel, or so many different game franchises. I've bought posters from them before, not only for myself, but as gifts for my family. They're great in a pinch since you can get them delivered within 5 business days, and you don't have to worry about losing your security deposit hanging these posters up, since all you need to do is stick a magnet to a wall and the poster mounts with ease. If you want your poster to be extra eye-catching, there are textra versions for many pieces of art, which adds 3D contours and textures with a matte and gloss effect to that art. So, if you want to add some extra personality and style to you or someone else's home, check out Displate through my link down below and use my code to get some very nice discounts depending on how much you buy. Now, back to Bulgaria. Despite all the complaints, the monarchy held on to its power, and the Tsar now had total control of the government. However, Bulgaria's problems weren't over yet. Externally, the Tsardom still faced annihilation, with Bulgaria's enemies preparing their attack from all sides. They were just waiting for the order from Serbia to launch the attack. But I had plans of my own. There is a secret path to Bulgaria to become a proper empire, but it isn't gonna be easy. Not only do I have to completely beat the Belgrade Pact, I also have to fight the Ottomans and occupy Constantinople, all within 150 days. So you have to be very aggressive from day one, and my first target was Serbia. They have a weak army, so with a few good divisions, you can just bust through their army and rush to Belgrade. Fortunately, the Russian volunteers didn't give me any problems, so I got into Belgrade and capitulated the country. Romania counts as a major, so I will have to beat them. But with the divisions from Serbia, I divert some of them to the Ottomans, who are starting their own war against me, and some to Greece, and you may wonder why I'm doing that when they aren't even considered a major in this war. Well, I need the divisions there for the Romanian front, and despite the rough terrain, Greece's army is also really bad, so with a few extra divisions, you can punch through their lines and snake along their coastline to Athens. The Romanian front is looking pretty rough, but if I get Greece, it's worth it. The Greeks only had one division guarding their capital, and despite my low numbers in the north, I actually snipe 2 Romanian divisions. The Greeks soon fold after I take a few smaller cities, and now I'm at the hard part. I have 2.5 months to kill Romania and take Constantinople. Most of the Greek front divisions go north and punch across the Danube to get to Bucharest. That city is the linchpin of the Romanian defense, because without it, I can push up to the Hungarian border, splitting the country in half and leaving the eastern parts very easy for me to grab. I can already start sending troops to Constantinople and prepare the final offensive while Romania collapses. With the end of the Belgrade Pact, I now have 17 days to complete my final objective, taking Constantinople. With the combined power of all my experienced units, the Turks fighting on very indefensible terrain quickly broke. The Bulgarian army attacked with great ferocity, never giving the Turks a moment to rest until they could finally put up the Bulgarian colors over Constantinople. My goal was accomplished with 6 days to spare, and I could proclaim the Third Empire. This gave me some extra focuses in my foreign policy branch, allowing me to form my own faction to dominate the Balkans and integrate more of my conquered land. The Ottomans, seeing the monster that they were facing, soon called for peace. Unfortunately, I can't keep all the land and am forced to spit out my former enemies as puppets. But at least I can still install some loyal leadership in them. Although my war is over, there are plenty of wars to get involved in, and even though I can only send 1 volunteer, I'm going to try my best to influence this war. Since the Kingdom of Spain is clearly struggling for equipment, I'm going to help them out since I'm swimming in guns. My division may not be the best, but they could still nudge the front line forward. The Carlists don't have enough units for their front line, so I try to exploit openings that they leave. Back home, there was still some unresolved business. A Serbian commander, General Mikhailovic, is leading the Chetniks, running around the countryside, committing acts of terror while we try to put him down. We also began efforts to make the Bulgarian economy actually good with the Atatis project. Over the next 2 years, I would work on completing this mission and get rewarded with some more very OP production bonuses. Back in Spain, my continuous lend-lease to the Kingdom of Spain, plus my constant combat with the Carlists, left them unable to resist my push to Oviedo. After that, I helped them clean up Galicia, and I decided to give America a look since I hadn't checked there in a while, and I was shocked to see the CSA actually on the back foot against the combined AUS and PSA forces. I definitely wanted to get involved there after I was done with Spain. You may have noticed I sent a volunteer to Italy, but because of the narrow front, those soldiers really ain't doing anything. After I took Barcelona, the Kingdom of Spain re-established control over the country, and I was free to divert my attention to the American Union state. Long's forces had successfully pushed to the Great Lakes. The war seemed pretty lost for the CSA, so I just stayed in Louisiana to fight this desperate naval invasion. Meanwhile, the Canadians finally woke up and declared on the CSA when the job was nearly done. I thought they were at least trying to help, but when New England declared on the American Union state, I could see where this was going. Fortunately, the AI and Taunt are as threatening as a Chihuahua, and I watched the PSA crush Canada's skull while I was fighting in Illinois. Let it be known, it was the Bulgarians who destroyed the last of the Cindy armies in Chicago. Ignore everyone else, it was Bulgaria who ended communism here. Even though the Entente was attacking them, the truce between the PSA and AUS broke down and they started fighting each other. I tried my best to help Huey Long by fighting the New English troops, and I also finished the Itatus project, giving me another 15% production cap. Bulgarian factories are going to be the most productive factories in all of Europe. But as it turned to 1940, Bulgarian priorities were changing. The AUS was too much of an investment, and I wanted to dominate the Balkans, which would involve me invading Albania, who had unfortunately aligned themselves to the Austrians for safety. With the Weltkrieg starting, I wanted to attack them before they joined the Reichspakt, so Long would have to be left to his fate. On April 7th, 1940, the invasion would begin. Bulgaria could not be the master of the Balkans as long as the Austrians were around. As the saying goes, only a Balkaner can oppress another Balkaner. My mountaineers pushed across the border to cut off Albania from Austrian support and isolate the country. From there, I could deploy my cracked Bulgarian tank divisions to clean up the pockets of resistance in the country. Following this would be a rough couple of months for the Bulgarian Empire though. The mountainous terrain of the Central Balkans was very favorable to the Austrian defenders who could easily grind down the Bulgarian offensives. While in the east, the Habsburg armies with their overwhelming air power grinded their way into Romania over the summer and fall, threatening to completely overrun the country and push into Bulgaria proper. As winter came, there was a small Austrian force trying to reach the Black Sea, but they had left their flank very lightly guarded. My tanks retook the city of Chisinau, and by reaching the Russian border, they had cut off 9 Austrian divisions, costing the Habsburgs 100,000 men. In the spring of next year, they tried again and pushed towards Galati. The tanks were able to exploit their weaknesses behind the city and cut off 12 more divisions. The Austrians had lost too much at this point, and the initiative was completely in my favor. My tanks could make more breakthroughs in Romania, leading to more destroyed Austrian divisions. They had successfully done an offensive to liberate Albania, but that came at the expense of weakening the rest of their front line. Soon, I would collapse the Austrians just like the Germans were collapsing in the north. Soon, I launched an offensive across the entire front and pushed through Illyria. The Austrian army in the area disintegrated in front of me. As I approached Austria proper, the Russians, seeing the Habsburgs were on the ropes, started their own invasion to scoop up as much land as possible from me. They did manage to take Vienna, but I still got Budapest, and after those 2 vital cities were taken, they were ready to tap out. The casualty ratio is really good though. The Bulgarian hegemony took out their empire with very light losses. In the peace deal, I did get most of their empire. Russians only got away with the Czechs and a part of Poland. Bulgaria is now the undisputed master of the Balkans, but that control needed to extend over the Bosphorus Straits too, so plans were made to finish off the hospice patient that was the Ottoman state. As I trampled over Anatolia, I couldn't help but be concerned over the expansion of the Third Internationale. Obviously, it was only a matter of time before those Reds came from the monarchy. With 2 Sicilies and Sardinia swallowed up, I wanted to help out the Italian Republic. I gave them more land so they could have more manpower and factories, but in hindsight, giving them more coastline to guard was probably not the move. As soon as my tank volunteer arrived and I got a good look at their army, it wasn't a good sight. If anything, I sped up their death. Their front line broke against the Reds, and then they were finished off by a naval invasion. I basically handed Mussolini more land to reunite Italy with. I had been upgrading my tank divisions to fight better, they just needed a better battlefield to prove themselves. Portugal was just the place for that, with the Third Internationale hammering them with naval invasions. Those volunteers arrived to see yet another nation on the brink of collapse. Despite the odds, I had to stand against syndicalism. Russia was kind enough to guarantee us, but they weren't doing enough. our tanks began with a drive southwards across the open plains of Portugal to take the port in Portimao. Honestly, this was kind of a Hail Mary attack. I really wasn't expecting it to actually work out. I quickly redeployed back to Lisbon, and from there I did an attack to the northeast to cut it off. I was making great progress, but I was forced to turn back when the British started naval invading Lisbon, and the defense there was looking pretty bad. I made sure all the invaders in southern Portugal were dealt with personally, and sent the tanks back north to deal with the naval invasion. We just needed to take Porto, and Portugal could be safe. But the Portuguese failed me once again. The south needed another rescue, which I would take care of after killing these units and celebrating Peter II's coronation. The communist Brits and French were sandwiching the Portuguese, and they stood on the brink of collapse. I once again heroically drove down the coast to Portimao and completely cut off the French army. I was ready to add another 16 French divisions to the kill count, but then they did the unthinkable. The AI actually put together a good breakout operation. Another French naval invasion hit the Portuguese coast, and they linked up with the pocketed French divisions, completely cutting me off. So they were able to take Lisbon and save most of their troops. I was kind of blown away. That was actually pretty well played on their part. However, Portugal is no place to die, so I pulled the emergency ripcord. Now, at that point, I was sitting there like, damn, what do I even do? I figured I could at least give the Entente a chance by helping the French Republic survive the attacks coming from every direction. I was just doing what I could to help them out until I got the bleak news that the Russians were coming for my faction. You'd think they stand beside their fellow monarchists to fight the communists, but no, I guess there can only be one monarchical great power in Europe. With war on the horizon, Bulgaria's finest gets to work modernizing our army. Since I cannot hope to match the Russians in terms of numbers, my hope is producing quality, modern divisions that will give me the edge I need to defeat them. I have 24 mechanized divisions and 14 tank divisions for the main front, 12 mountaineers for the Caucasus, and some decent divisions for port garrisons. When the justification finished, the Russians declared the next day. I tried an opening push into Ukraine, but the Russians quickly stopped that with their masses of troops, while they plowed through Hungary with ease since I had no men over there to stop them. Not even 2 months in, and I'm starting to see how outmatched I am. The Russians have bombed all my factories making planes, along with many other things. I'm trying to make counterattacks, and I actually am successful in some of them. However, I can't keep up the pressure because we are having a bit of a problem. Ooh. The Russian AI saw that most of my army was mechanized, so what did they do? They bombed my main source of oil. I had to ration what little fuel I had, so I basically couldn't move more than a dozen units at a time. The Russians start aggressively pushing towards Bucharest, and I could not let that happen. If Bucharest falls, I'm basically dead. While the Russian troops pushed to the coast, I pincered their rear and pushed them into a beachhead around Constanza. This pocket should have felt like a great victory considering all the divisions I caught in it. However, I still feel like I'm losing. The Russian bombing campaigns have made it so I can't even trade for oil abroad. However, killing 600,000 men in an encirclement will definitely be great news for the folks on the home front. I tried to keep the magic going with an offensive to liberate Hungary, but all the tanks ran out of fuel halfway to the objective, so I had to call it quits. In 7 months, I have inflicted 3 million casualties on the Russians, and they show no signs of slowing down. It's not even like I can cope and say that it'll get better, because it's the exact opposite. It gets worse for me the longer this war goes on. I thought I accomplished something great in Austria when I cut off another overly ambitious Russian army, but the AI broke themselves out because the stupid Romanians can't hold my flanks. With that failure, it's pretty much over for Austria, and I need to send my tanks back to Bulgaria since Russian troops are once again threatening core Bulgarian territory. The Bulgarian tank force arrived to prove that just because we are losing doesn't mean we've lost. They drove across the Danube to isolate many more Russian divisions along with taking off pressure from Bucharest. The Russian offensive to take Sofia had failed, and they paid a heavy price for that failure. However, since time was on their side, they worked on slowly grinding me down. Every defensive line I would try to set up would fall within days, and eventually the Russian forces marched into the capital, Sofia. My logistics network was in chaos, my production had collapsed. There was little I could do, especially when Russians just have a casual 40% attack bonus against me with their intel and air advantage. I caused 5 million casualties, and it doesn't even matter. The Russians are just gonna fold me within a year of starting this war. Once 1945 hits, all I can do is just sit back and accept that there's nothing we can do. So, that's the end of my story. Bulgaria will now exist as a mere puppet state in the Moscow Accord, while Peter II somehow fails upwards to form Yugoslavia. Well, as they say, it's about the journey, not the destination, so I hope you enjoyed seeing Bulgaria's journey here. If you did, remember to leave a like so other people can enjoy this journey too. Thanks to Displate for sponsoring this video, and of course my wonderful alumni supported me on Patreon. These videos ain't easy to make, so thank you for those who allow me to focus on quality content for y'all. Make sure you're subbed for more good content to come, and see y'all soon. Bye bye!